The story of Steve Jobs' 1985 exit from Apple is usually told as a corporate tragedy, a visionary dreamer cast out by a rigid, bean-counting bureaucrat. This framing misses a fundamental divide in how to govern a company. The struggle for Apple's future was a collision between two entirely different systems of power. In 1983, Jobs recruited the president of PepsiCo with a single question: do you want to spend the rest of your life selling sugared water, or do you want a chance to change the world? For a man like John Scully, who had already reached the top of the corporate world, that question made his titles and salary feel suddenly, devastatingly small. Jobs operated within the visible game. He used personal magnetism and unyielding vision to warp the reality of a room and force organizational outcomes. By bringing Scully to Apple, Jobs introduced a master of a different system, a quiet, methodical approach to influence that Jobs' own framework was not designed to detect. Inside the Macintosh division, Jobs' influence was total. He hoisted a pirate flag over the building and demanded a standard that ignored the conventional limits of engineering. His team worked with the intensity of a mission rather than a job. On January 24, 1984, the Macintosh launch at the Flint Center put this leadership style on full display. Jobs used the theater of the stage to trigger a collective emotional response. He pulled the machine from a canvas bag and let it speak its own name. 2,500 people rose to their feet in the dark, responding to the feeling that they were witnessing the arrival of the future. Rapturous media coverage and a surge in sales provided the ultimate validation for Jobs. From the center of the spotlight, his leadership philosophy appeared untouchable. But public applause is a poor measure of boardroom security. The same intensity that moves an auditorium can often blind a leader to the quieter pressures building in the background. After the initial launch spike, sales abruptly flattened into a plateau. Mainstream consumers hesitated at the high price, and inventory piled up. But Jobs dismissed this data as a temporary distraction. Operating on the clock of history, he demanded even more aggressive sales targets. Scully lived on the clock of survival. He focused on quarterly cash flow and the immediate risk of an inventory crisis. Instead of challenging Jobs in open meetings, Scully began a series of unrecorded corridor conversations and quiet dinners with key board members. Scully focused on aligning the board's perception of risk. He listened to their anxieties and acknowledged the grim financial data without the defensive posturing found in official product meetings. He was building a consensus of responsible stewardship. While Jobs was loudly defending his vision in product reviews, Scully was quietly positioning himself as the board's psychological safe haven. The 1985 quarterly board meeting served as the final collision point for these two leadership frameworks. Jobs relied on his established strategy, an overwhelming presentation of the product roadmap. He used his presence to dominate the physical space, expecting his conviction to force the room into compliance. Jobs finished the meeting believing his performance had successfully secured his position. But the outcome had already been decided in the weeks leading up to the meeting. Scully had pre-aligned the board's votes through the patient management of their individual concerns. As fiduciaries, the directors prioritized liability and institutional survival. They moved toward the future that felt like responsible governance, leaving the visionary gamble behind. Jobs lost his company because he brought the tools of an auditorium to a boardroom. He misread the terrain, assuming that charisma could overcome the silent architecture of institutional risk.